because it says recording will start soon, and sometimes it's a quick soon, sometimes it's a long soon, but soon is now. That is right. Soon is now. Mesopotamia. All right. I'm so excited. I love talking about this unit. It's so cool what we have right here. Now, Mesopotamia is going to be one of the earliest world civilizations. Now, I can't say it is the earliest, although way back in the day and when I was a child, they did try to say that sort of thing, but we have evidence saying that, Egypt started around the same time. India started around the same time. China started around the same time. Which one was first? Perhaps we'll never know. Or maybe we will. And that'll be great. Alexander will have his time machine, or Evelyn will be doing some archaeological digs and she'll find something and we'll know for sure. Now, we're using this word civilization. Now, civilization is a complex society. Now, a civilization is going to have cities, all right? So we don't consider our Neolithic times to be civilizations yet because they're just starting to develop cities. They have organized governments because we know in the very beginning people were tribal, where they had familial connections, and probably the strongest and meanest was the person in charge, but we didn't have something organized yet with, government positions and all that sort of thing. Civilizations will have art. They will have some sort of religious beliefs, even though that religious beliefs could be, not necessarily what we consider having gods and goddesses. It could be, devoid of that, but they'll still have some sort of spiritual belief system. It'll have class divisions, which that means basically everyone is unfortunately not equal, that there are people who are powerful, people who have, and there are people who are less powerful and have less. And then there are those that typically have nothing, unfortunately, no power or very few possessions. And finally, a civilization will have a language. Now, I want to caution all of you because so often you will see it say a civilization needs a written language. And my cherubs, that is false. Because we're going to talk about civilizations that did not use writing, but are still amazing civilizations. For example, in the 6th grade, we're going to talk about the Inca Empire, which is going to be this civilization that is going to rule in the Andes Mountains of South America. I mean, it's going to be tough to live there, and it's going to have beautiful art, it's going to have religion, it's going to have class divisions, it's going to have amazing cities like Machu Picchu, an organized government, and they'll have a spoken language, but they won't use writing. Instead, they're going to use something called a quipu, which is going to be strings with knots in it. So please do not think written language has to be a requirement, because there are going to be so many people who use oral languages, and we should not disparage them saying they're not in a civilization. Now, all of these civilizations were centered around river valleys. And we talked about that or do now. Kadir said, well, you get water, you can fish. And then we had Evelyn and Eliza talking about how it was better for farming. And Shania remembered because they gave us silt. We had someone, I can't remember, I think it was Zoe said transportation. And then Danny said, and you could trade. So we did all of these things in our do now, which makes me so proud that you guys got it. So good job. But the biggest reasons, of course, are going to be farming, so you can feed people because people like to eat, and also the idea of trading of goods with the transportation. Now, remember, it's not just goods, though. It's the idea that Cortez can go give information, his knowledge, to Alexander easier, who can then give his information to Riley Pepper, who can give his information to Jackie. So this idea that information and goods are going to spread between them, and we're going to see many, many cities growing during this time. Last week we talked about Jericho and Ketol Hayuk, which we see Ketol Hayuk is right there, and Jericho is right there. So around the Mediterranean Sea is where we're going to have our earliest of cities. Now, where we are focusing, however, is this place called Mesopotamia, the land between the two rivers. And those two rivers are going to be here. So we see we have this green area. And this green area is called the Fertile Crescent. We're going to make that on our maps today. And we have two main rivers in this area, the Tigris River, which is in the northwest, and the Euphrates River, which is in the southeast. That's why when we sing in our song, a Tigris on top, because we often think of north as higher or the top, and then Euphrates is on the bottom. So Tigris on top, Euphrates. All right, guys. We're going to see it's all going to merge together and then go into the Persian Gulf. However, we believe that this little single area back then was actually land, or blah, 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 excuse me, actually water. And just over time, silt is built up to make it into land today and one river going into the Persian Gulf. All right. Do we have any questionroonies at this point? Comments, questions? Give me a me in the chat if that is something you want clarified. Okay. So, we talked about the positives of living near a river, but guess what? There is a downside, a big, big downside: flooding. So what happens is, and I'm actually going to back up just a wee bit so I can give you a better picture of how this is all going to work. We see these little texture marks on the map. Does anyone know what those texture marks typically mean on a map? Could someone give me a me in the chat and tell me what they think these texture marks up here represent? Michael, what do you think these texture marks mean, sir?
Like a landform? Like mountains?
Yes, precisely. They are mountains. Very good. I am sure Danny and Zoe were going to say that, and Eliza just chimed in. Thank you. So these are mountains, and what happens is mountains are very, very tall. I know Zoe's like, yeah, duh, I know that. Adelina's like, yeah, I snowboard down them. Well, because they are very, very tall, they get very, very cold, and they get lots and lots of snow on them, even in this region during the winter. So I know we often think of this region as warm, but guess what? Up top on the mountains, it's chilly willy. And so in the spring, when we have all of this rain coming, it melts the snow. The rain comes to, it goes down the mountains, and it's going to totally flood those rivers. They are going to flood like crazy. These pictures demonstrate some of the flooding here. We see, oh, these were nice, happy trees. Now they're underwater. So these floods are going to go like crazy. And the problem is they didn't know when the floods were going to happen. They were unpredictable. You did not know if it was going to flood early or late. And so we had this problem because people needed to figure out when to farm. Because if you're like, well, I'm going to wait for the flood, and then the flood doesn't happen this year, then you've planted your crops too late. If you said, well, I'm going to plant my crops early so I can get lots of crops, and then, the flood comes, wipes out all of your crops. Unfortunately, because these floods are also unpredictable, your house might have been safe for the past 10 years, but then this one year, Eliza comes home after going from a day at the market, and then she says, my house is gone. My family has washed away. Oh, no. So then Eliza has to get a new family. She goes, finds a new family, and she goes, has new kids, new husband. And then what could happen a couple years later is the flood can wash that house away too. And then Eliza's like, oh man, now I need to go get another family. Very inconvenient, I know. So the flooding was unpredictable. And every year it was a real challenge because when do you grow your crops? But the thing is, people wanted to stay by the river. Michael says this is a great place for our farming because it leaves all of this silt, this super black, rich soil. Like it is like so dark because it is so packed with so many nutrients. It is so awesome. Like literally, Alexander just throws some seeds down on it and then bam, plants pop up with their awesomeness growing. So people aren't going to move away from the rivers, but it was a yearly challenge. So, and by the way, for some reason, whoever made this picture, they spelled tigress wrong. That should be with an I. Sorry. I totally blame Zoe. Yep. So, we have the Tigris-Euphrates River, the Tigris on top, Euphrates on the bottom, Mesopotamia, the in-between land. Here's a picture showing you the river when it's low, okay? And then, wha-bam. Now we see it when it gets flooded. So, not so much water, lots of water. And we see the effect of the water. So we see all gray and bleh, green and wonderful. And that is the awesomeness of the rivers there. So that is going to be our notes for the day. Do we have any questions? Any questions? Yes, Khan, sir.
For the assignment for today, when it says period, I do not know, on the top where you put your name. What does period
Okay,
mean?
well, I don't know why you'd be
Alright.
looking at the assignment while we were doing our notes, sir.
No, I just did it this morning, but I didn't finish
Well,
it. I
so
just looked at it.
like I've said this before, you are not supposed to do the assignments early because I have to explain things and show things like that. So please, please, please. I love how you're so anxious to be awesome and get stuff done, but I really need you to hold your horses because, like I said, for this Mesopotamia map, we're going to work on a lot of this together before I cut you guys loose. So I need everyone now, and I'll address that in a minute, sir, okay? To go to their Monday 921 folder, which of course that is in our ancient history section 1-4, our week 4 921 through 925, because that is this week. I mean, I guess over on the side you can click Mesopotamia map too. I mean, I guess that's a way you could do it. But in the 921 folder, I'm clicking Mesopotamia map. And we want to open this assignment with Cami. Okay? And you should see something like that. And oh, by the way, if we could, I'm going to stop recording. Sorry about that.